Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joe Menza here, and I thought because a couple people in our group were talking about the challenges of doing skies fast and loose, thought I would maybe go over doing some quick ways that I do skies in a fast and loose manner. So the easiest way to do it, I think, is to do it on a more of a flat surface with a slight incline, but for videos I do this straight up. Plus I like the way the paint cascades down the paper. But the way that I would do it is, and I found as a beginner with doing skies, is I put 3 coats of water on. And I dip in my Hake brush into the water. I get a good amount of water going. And I make sure my paper is good and wet. So you start to see the water cascade down the paper. Once I see that it's good and wet, you can see the sheen hopefully on the paper. Then I take some raw sienna, and you can put a light coating on there, or you can kind of just dab it on in a random fashion and leave some areas where you are planning on having some white cloud showing through. Wash your brush so it doesn't turn green. And then get some ultramarine blue, and I like to add a little Payne's gray to that so it's not super blue. And then what I'll do is I'll randomly apply that. As you get better at it, you can make it less random and kind of more deliberate where you want it. And just dip back into your brush, varying the intensity. Now, once you have some pattern like this going, then go back and take a little alizarin crimson and some Payne's gray to where it just has a slightly reddish tint to it. And you can dab that in, and it'll actually give you some darker clouds. And there's a basic sky. When that dries, it'll look pretty nice. Now, if you want to put some water down in the bottom, use your same sky colors, a little bit of blue, and just bring it across while it's still wet. Leave a little area where the light might be coming down through. And there you have it. It's as simple as that. It will take a few paintings for you to get the gist of it. And once you get the gist of it, then you can start experimenting with different patterns and different colors. Let's do a quick dry. Okay, now that we have that, let's go back to our palette and let's put in some things just to make the sky look convincing that there's some foreground things going on the bottom. So in this case, I'm going to take a little blue, a little Payne's gray, maybe a little alizarin crimson, and I'm just going to drop in some peaks. Being careful not to let it run. If you're on a flatter surface, you won't have that problem. And sometimes I like to take my card and put in just some snowy peaks. Just like that. And then come back with just a little darker the blue, a little more Payne's gray, and just dab in a little. Just dab in a little darker areas where the dark side of the mountain is. And you can even come back with your card. And you can do more if you want to. Don't scratch too hard or you'll scratch the paper. And so there we have our initial first mountain. If you want to come back in with some brown hues or some green hues, a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue, and drop in just some foreground mountains coming through here. Some sweeps coming through. A little darker colors here where the land masses are. Put just a little bit of brown. Try to keep your horizon level. A few little sweeps. Let's stretch the paper a little. as you can see here, we have a pretty nice dramatic sky. It's relatively dry now. Come in with some darker tones. You can even create some more elements to push this even further back if you want to. And start to make the little land masses here a little bit more convincing. One of the little tricks that I do is if I don't like an area of my sky, I'll put a tree in there and I'll just work that in. But if you're really happy with what you have, you can just leave a nice wide open landscape. Okay, so let's do another sky. And I'm going to show you again. We're going to do the 3 coating technique that I've been doing. Dip it again. Let that water cascade down. If you're doing this flat, it's not going to cascade, and that's fine. One more. I like the flow of the water personally. Again with the raw sienna. This time, let's just basic strokes across. We're not going to dab it in this time. Just a nice coating of it all the way across. Okay, and wash your brush. This time use a little ultramarine and a little light red. No, it might be a little too red. And we'll dab this in. Some fast strokes, dabbing at the stuff coming down. And this will create a more of a reddish sky, if you can see that. And this time I did a different pattern. Do a pattern, leave different areas of light available to yourself. Coming back with different strengths, so it varies. Okay? And then an advanced technique you can use is you take your brush and wash it and dry it a little, and you can come back and you can actually take paint off. You can use a tissue for this too. So if you take that, you can actually take a little bit of a paper towel and you can do a little dabbing and create some highlights where some clouds might be. But don't do that too strongly or it won't look very believable. A little more blue, a little more red. Got to do this while it's still wet and you have to lay it in relatively quickly. And you'll get an interesting pattern there. Okay? Now if we're going to do water again across the bottom, we're going to have the sky colors are going to be present there. I do water, I think it's just easier, okay? So for that, I think we ought to stop and do a quick dry. Okay? And now for this one, we'll do some mountains. Take a little bit of blue, some yellow, and just drop in some fast and loose light trees. We'll just go all the way across to keep it simple. So it looks like we're just laying down some basic trees there, very quickly, very easily. And then we're going to take some Payne's Gray with some blue and yellow. And we'll get in some more density here and push some of that back so we have a layering going on. And again, this is skies, but I'm doing this just to set it off against our newly created background. So it just makes the skies look more believable. You have to have something down there. So it's an interesting sky. Nice, a lot of light here. You'll notice here there was some drippage coming down. I may elect to put a little tree in there or something. Just going to drop in some land here. kind of like we did before. Different shapes. It's the shapes that make it appealing. When you're doing stuff, think in terms of shapes. You think about it too much, it loses a little of that spontaneity. Let's take some brown and some blue. A bit of Payne's gray. Just dot this bottom a little bit so it looks like there's a shore there. Might be a little heavy. And I find if you got a lot of darks going on, you just put in a little light, whether it be a scraping with some rocks. It just gives the eye something to look at. And if you remember now, I was talking about this area here I kind of didn't like. I'm going to show you what I can do with that. We'll drop in a big old tree here. A little more brown. Branches coming off in some places. And already we've lost some of that area that we were concerned about. Let's take our card and drop in some bark. And then at this point, if you want to, you can take your rigger brush and just very quickly put in some more branches. It's a little bit more time consuming. I'll put in a couple here. Just some quick flicks. And you can leave it like that, or you can offset it with some bashed in leaves. If you want to do green, pick your color, pick some yellow maybe, and just on a drier Hake brush, just dab in some leafage. Take a little Payne's gray and just where there would be darker shadows more near the tree and underneath. You can even use a little bit of that grass with that color you just made to dab in a little grass. Come back with your rigger brush. Don't make it too wet for this, but you can put in some sticks and things. You can always take your card, scratch in some put some scratches in there. Come back with your pen. I use a pen because my hand shakes a little, and put a few little birds in there flying. And there we basically have another sky. Kind of guide you down here. We've got reflections going in here. I'll show you some close-ups of the two paintings when I come back. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so here is the second painting with our more reddish, almost purplish sky, where we dabbed a little. You can be as dramatic with this as you like, and where we've left some light. And then over here, we still, even though we've covered some of this area, that background plays through here very, very nicely. And then, of course, we did our little foreground. We've still got some glow from where we used our sky colors coming through in the water. You can even get more color in here, some blues and things like that if you kind of plan it out. Let's go and take a look at the other first painting that we did. Let's zoom in on the clouds. And you can see we've got a pretty dramatic pattern going on in here, plays off our little scrapes on the mountains, and then all the way in through here. So that gives us that light here and that light here. And you can see in close how it's dried out and it's created some different shades.